A Reddit thread on 50/50ths relationships. Original post from data_pixel. So I get it, and I agree that partners should be equal. Not exactly 50/50ths at all times, because sometimes one person can give 20 when they are sick or unemployed, but then they will give more in future. However, I notice that a lot of men, not all, but it's a trend, love 50/50ths only when it comes to the financial aspect. If a woman pays less, she is immediately a gold digger in their eyes. But house chores, emotional labor, reproductive health, etc., can be almost exclusively a woman's burden, while women still pay half of the bills, and in some cases even more. Even my father, who is pro-equality and thinks that women should always pay their fair share on dates, does about 25% of housework. So what's the deal with it? Why do some men focus so much only on bills but completely ignore when a woman does almost all house chores? Responses. From Curious_Colors says, I think it stems from a place of entitlement, as if many household chores are below them. They grow up and see women doing all the housework, and internalize, that stuff isn't for me. It's dumb. Gender roles are dumb. I like to think that we are reaching a point where men doing an equal burden of household work, chores, specifically ones considered womanly, is getting more normalized though. From Mr. Bliss_AU says, I'm a bloke. In my opinion, I think this comes from a combination of not having to put out that amount of effort growing up, and having low standards living in share houses and shit, and basically just leaning on housemates being less willing to live in absolute filth than they are. I think there's also a bit of a thing with not realizing the amount of work that goes into mentally keeping track of what needs doing and making sure these things get done. Which leads to the woman generally taking care of most of that mental load and telling him what needs doing, which he doesn't really care to think about too much and assume that she does the same amount of work that she doles out to him. Lack of effort, I think, and the heuristic of if the tasks and effort isn't available to your mind, you forget it exists. I used to be a bit like this, and since have come to realize how heavy the weight of all this responsibility is, as well as the actual work involved in keeping a house in a state that most people would be comfortable living in, or at least the folks who you do live with. It should always be a big communal and communicative effort, which is pretty difficult to do to make sure everyone's happy, but deeply worth it. From Spandex Catsuit says, men are actual gold diggers when they exploit women's labor, which is status quo. But a woman who points to the income disparity between herself and her partner as a factor in why she needs some support from him is greedy. It's a ridiculous double standard. From Dan Marino's Dolphin says, there's no such thing as 50/50ths in a patriarchy. This is why I do not believe in gender equality. I believe in gender equity. I believe women should be appropriately compensated for what they bring to the table. I'm a radical feminist, not a third wave, Sex and the City, women can be just like men feminist. The biggest lie patriarchy tells these days is that men and women should be equal. Then carry a baby for 4.5 months then. Pay women the same then. Do half the chores then. It's not equal. So neither should finances be equal. From Session Leather says, agreed. Just shows how the patriarchy is even controlling feminist discussions when it's a huge issue that women must pay equally for dates. However, rape is still rampant and equal career and financial success for women has hardly been achieved. I'd say men should form a unanimous militia to defend against the constant rape and harassment before expecting women to take out their wallets to buy a damn glass of wine. From Future Significant 412 says, women must pay equally for dates. It is a disadvantage to women to be paid for the date. It is patronizing and patriarchal to be paid for. We are not inferior, we are perfectly capable of paying. From Session Leather says, hard nope. Empowerment comes from owning property and accumulating wealth and other forms of power, not pandering to men like idiots. What kind of feminist tells women what we must do? Women can do whatever they want, and should do whatever serves to strengthen us. From a since deleted user says, I've always tried to respect the relativity of things in relationships. For example, when I work in IT and my partner works in social work, I roughly make twice as much as them. I feel they're incredibly underpaid, social work in general, but I can't control that market, but I can help more financially to make the underpayment a bit more tolerable. Asking them to pay 50/50ths isn't right, in my opinion. $100 to me isn't $100 to them, it's twice as much. How I approached this was to figure out exactly what the difference was, and it came out to about 70/30ths. So we'd split the total cost of utilities, rent, etc. at the end of the month that way. Bills were $1,500 this month. I'll pay $1,050 and they'll pay $450. It was never a problem. We split vacations and shared big purchases this way too. In respects to house chores, this gets hard. People can do something and mind it a little bit for a long time, and each time they do it, it'll be like a drop of water in a bucket. Eventually it'll overflow. I've had luck proposing a sort of layered approach. I like mowing the yard, I'll take that. They like doing laundry but hate hanging it up, I'll hang up whatever is in the clean basket sitting on the bed. It's about finding the least objectionable chore and doing that. We don't assign things to each other. I've had a sprained ankle multiple times, I'm a clumsy fuck, and they'll mow that week, but it's never kept track of. I'll try to do something to make up for it using their love languages, and it works out most the time. The layering comes in the sense of if they do something they hate to do, they hung the laundry up, I'll go scrub the bathtub until it shines like new. Regardless of how well this approach works or sometimes doesn't work, relationships take work, and this is best done with good communication and sharing expectations. Don't assume that, "Can you walk the dog?" means the same thing to the other person unless that expectation has been set. Note, just sharing what's worked in my relationships, wish you all the best in yours. Last one for now from Throwaway Ferret 88 says, typical effects of the patriarchy telling men they deserve more than their fair share, and feminism encouraging women to overcompensate and be everything, to show how self-sufficient we are. There's definitely a lot of people benefiting off it right now, and I just hope the pendulum swings back around to where women stop contributing so much financial and emotional labor freely all the time. Comment your thoughts below.